is exactly what it is. Now that we have to come to this world, we live in this body that is very humble, but that is perfect for this environment. And it is for this reason that you see this dichotomy or this strange difference between how divine, how pure, how magnificent the human soul is when Allah speaks of it, versus the physical body and how humble it is, isn't it? Think of how we eat. What do we eat? We grow things from the ground, plants, fruits. We kill animals and we eat the carcass of dead animals. We wash the blood away and then we roast it on fire. And then with these digits and bones, we pick that flesh of dead animals and we have a hole in the face we call a mouth. We put that in and then it goes down a pipe and it gets... And this is our body. Why are we so weak, so humble, so base outwardly? Because we are aliens here. So an alien needs a body to carry it. And if we take that in mind, then we immediately disidentify. Now we're thinking very differently, isn't it? Now we're thinking, I'm not from this planet, I'm from somewhere else. Can we find this idea of coming down to a lower, baser form in this world from Islam? Yes. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah describes after the Prophet Adam and Hawa alayhim as-salam, after they eat from that forbidden tree, they are now being sent to the world. Allah does not say to Adam and Hawa, go now to the world. قُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌ. We said to them, descend and go down, where you will now be enemies to each other. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌ وَمَطَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. And on this earth now you shall have an abode for a little while, and sustenance or a means and a provision for a short while.
الرحمن الرحيم مالك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز تبارك الخالق الباري المصور الغفار القهار الرزاق الفاتح الفتاح العليم القابض الباسط الخافض الرافع المعز المذل السميع البصير الحكم العدل اللطيف الخبير العظيم الغفور الشكور العليم الكبير الحفيظ المقيت الحسيب الجليل الكريم اللطيف المجيب الواسع الحكيم الودود الباعث الشهيد الحق الوكيل القوي المتين المحصي المبدئ المعين المميت الحي القيوم.
Where's Hajj? Is Hajj there? Take it up there? No, this one is up. It's too much. He said use the red one. Yes, this one doesn't work at all. That's good. That's fine. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. May His peace and blessings be on our beloved Prophet and His immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Salawat. So, inshallah, your Ramadan, the spirit of the Ramadan has continued. And ask yourself, the question is, what is one good thing, and then we'll begin, that happened during Ramadan for you? And how have you continued it after Ramadan, or how have you not continued it? So were you reciting the Quran during the month of Ramadan? Were you spending time with your family during Ramadan? Were you more forgiving during Ramadan? And if not, have that conversation with the person next to you and say, why not? Go ahead. I should tell Mrs. Seems to be adjusting my mic. No, it's too loud. There's going to be a lot of interaction today. Okay. We have one person share. Who would like to share? What went well? What do you want to continue? You haven't continued since the month of Ramadan. Who would like to share? Come on. Yes. So the family time, has it continued? It has. Does it typically continue? No. Should it? Yes. So all the things we feel deem important usually come during the month of Ramadan. The topic today, the focus is how do you continue that? What is the one thing that you need to reflect on to say, yeah, this is exactly where it's at? And there's secrets in the Quran that bring that forward to us. So one interesting thing before we begin is, when you talk to people, you ask them, what happened? Why do you have this illness? Or why do you have this broken relationship? Or why do you have this fear of trusting people? Or why do you have a problem with work or your career or your finances? And when you sit, and it's my first initial counseling with somebody, what will they typically do? They'll say that something happened to me. And if it happened 5, 10, 15 years ago, when they were 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, or 30 years old, when that event happened to them, usually what they tell me is about 50% of the truth. Why? Because that person that happened to them when they were 5 or 10 doesn't exist anymore. Their brain is different. So now they're using a story, which 50% is true, to use an excuse to stay the person that they are. And that's how most of us use our brain. Why are you this way? Well, this happened to me 10 years ago. My parents were like this to me. And what happens, the nafs takes over and exaggerates the story to make you feel comfortable with yourself. This program that we do, we try to break the habit of that. And when you do, and then instead of you romancing the past, you're able now to romance the future by forgiving the people that hurt you. And that's when the weird things happen in your life. Synchronicities, serendipities, coincidences happen. Why? Because you chose not to be a victim anymore. Some of us, our biggest addiction is that thinking process, that I have to be a victim. I cannot let that past go because that person hurt me so much, or that event put me back so much, I just can't let it go. And until you do, you'll never see anything different in your life. That's just the reality of life. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. That's it. So this conversation today is, who are you? Where are you going? And how do you reflect in a way where instead of romancing the past, you start romancing the future? You use the word visualization. I like the word mental rehearsal. What have you been mentally rehearsing recently that you want something new in your life? What have you been able to sit still, pray to Allah that Allah bring this event to me? This is how it's going to feel. When do people typically do that? When the doctor tells them they have 3 weeks to live or 6 months to live, or the wife wants to leave that individual, or the husband wants to leave the wife, or some type of jail or something. We usually do some type of mental rehearsal when we hit rock bottom. We've lost everything. So the question is, why do we wait for that to happen to change in bad times? Why don't we change in good times? Why do we have to wait? So this program is all about trying to change not in bad times, but in good times, and mentally rehearsing that and not allowing yourself to be a victim anymore. You become a victim in this world. Out of the infinite amount of possibilities, when you're a victim, you're going to put your attention towards the worst. If a lion is chasing me, you're about to be a victim. Are you going to go pet the lion or run away from it? What would happen if you pet it? It'll be the last time you use your arm. So it's good to be a victim right there, because you don't want to be a victim. You better run away from that. So out of the infinite amount of possibilities, you're putting your attention towards the worst and good, because you better think the worst, that the lion is going to eat you and run away. That's important. But now replace that lion for something that happened in your past that doesn't even exist anymore. Now, out of the infinite amount of possibilities, where are you putting your attention? Towards the worst or the best? The worst. So that person, that man that betrayed you 2 weeks ago or a month ago or 6 years ago, now every man is a potential betrayer. Some person called me today for counseling. I've been doing a lot of Zoom counseling around the country. Person says, I'm gonna be very honest with you. My wife betrayed me so much that we got divorced. It's almost impossible for me to get in a relationship and trust a woman again. I cannot believe how traumatized I am with women. Is he becoming a victim? And if I would have let him go for about an hour and telling me all the details in his life, the way she manipulated, stole, cheated, hurt him, he would have went on for 2 hours. Would that have ever have helped him? No. If any counselor comes and tells you to replay the past, and you're just sitting there, and then they give you a little bit of advice, that's not a good counseling session. Doesn't work. Now, do we talk about the emotions that the past has caused you? Yes. And do you have to replace the emotions? Yes. How? Focus on the Quran. Quran will tell you what emotions you should have. Go find any of God's names, and then I'll begin this presentation. Look at any of God's names. Out of the 99, pick one. Then go and chat GPT and say, this is the God's name that I like. Give me all of the ayahs of the Quran that have this name of God in there. So it'll give you about 10 ayahs for every name. Then, so the secret is those ayahs end with the name of Allah. And then if it ends with the name of Allah, then how to get that name is in that ayah, actualize that ayah. That's a secret. Did you understand what I just said? I'm going to repeat it, then I'm going to have you share. Pick 99 names of Allah. Find where those 99 names of Allah are in the Holy Quran. Google search, Chat GPT, whatever you like. Then read that verse of the Quran, and when it ends with the name of Allah, read that verse and say, that verse is the key in how do I get the name of Allah. And then if you could take that verse and apply it in your own life, then you will manifest that name of Allah in your own life. Repeat what I just said with the person next to you. No, the secret in the Quran. No. What did I just say? Okay, who can repeat what I just said? Quickly. Your Chat GPT in it. Go ahead. Pick one of the 90 names of Allah. Okay, and then what? Okay, then when you read it, what do you do to get that name into your life? If you want love in your life, what's one of God's names? Al-Wadud. So find out where Al-Wadud is in the Holy Quran, apply it, read it, and say, okay, how do I actualize this verse in my own life? What is that verse? We're going to do this practice next week. I wasn't going to speak about this today, but it just came up. So I just decided now we're going to do this workshop next week. So you take that name of Al-Wadud, you find where it is in the Quran, you want love, apply and actualize those verses in your life, and watch how fast love comes to you. You want wealth? There's eyes of Quran for that. You want patience? There's that. You want healings? There's that. Whatever it is, it's in the Holy Quran. You know, you don't need anything outside of you. You don't need anybody except the Quran. It has everything in it. There's so many layers to it. And what's beautiful about the Holy Quran, it's not dependent on any outside source to explain it. It explains itself. It's got its own science. That's beautiful. So You can be solely dependent on the Quran. And the Holy Quran, the closest manifestation that we have to Allah is what? The Quran. So in the month of Ramadan, if you were reciting Quran, continue. If you haven't recited the Holy Quran at all, then use this practice. Pick a name of Allah, whatever it is. Find the ayahs and say, how can I actualize this ayah in my own life? Read it every day and watch what happens before 40 days in your life. It's a secret. So if you have any, you don't now have no excuse. Zero. What else do you need? I just gave you. We could end the lecture now. That's all we need. But you know why we don't do it? Hussein, why don't we do it? What I just said, why don't we do it, Hussein? Because we don't believe. I tell people, pray on time. Everything will happen on time in your life. Right? I have a hard time. Why? Because they really don't believe in it. So all I'm asking you to do is one thing. If what I just said made sense at all to you, can you suspend your beliefs for 40 days? Just suspend them. So I don't believe in it, but I'm going to suspend that belief. I'm going to see if anything weird happens in my life when I apply it, if anything interesting. And then you're one experience away. That's why we do testimonials. When somebody comes up and says, you know, we just did a healing. And the people that were doing dua mashlul when we became brain and heart coherent, and when those people share the same visions, how do you close your eyes where two people share the same exact visions? And then the people that share the visions feel the pain of the person that they're praying for. Nobody told us that that sister had a tumor close to her heart. That's what everybody felt in that meditation when we did that home visit recently. They felt it. How? How do people share the same exact vision? How does one person come in somebody's meditation and is able to see them while they're in their meditation, and then they finish their meditation and telling them what happened? Explain that. You can't. So why do you? So stop believing in every stupid thing that you think, and suspend some of your beliefs and go get your beliefs from the Holy Quran. Do that for a little while. Watch how many changes in your life happen. So today's lecture, we're going to try to encompass that. So I was going to do a quick review on the eye, but I'm going to save that for next week, inshallah. We'll skip this. There's a lot. It is a truly great cosmic paradox that one of the best teachers in all of life turns out to be blank. No person or situation could ever teach you as much as blank has to teach you. While someone could tell you that you're not your body, blank shows you. While someone could remind you that insignificance of the things that you cling to, blank takes them all the way in a second. While people can teach you that men and women on all races are equal and that there is no differences between the rich and the poor, blank instantly makes us all the same. Tell the person next to you what is blank. Go. Fill in. All the same. It's one word. We have one guess of Allah. What's the word? Tell the person next to you. What's the answer? So one answer is Allah. What else? Death is one answer. Quran. Change. Suffering. Suffering. It's possible. Anybody else? Haji, one guess? What do you think? You said Quran. Anybody else? You ready? The answer is death. Do you know what the best thing in your life is? Death. Now I have a question for you. Actually, it's the questions within the slides, so I'm going to save it. We're going to continue. What time is it? Because we started really late. Because I don't want to go over prayer. So we're going to end around 9 o'clock, around prayer time. Okay. So does everybody agree with this statement? Anybody disagree? So we all agree that death is the best teacher. Do we all agree? Death is the best teacher. But how many of us remember death often? Are you supposed to? Not in a morbid way, but in an exciting way. Why would the prophets of God be excited for death? Let me give you a hint. Anybody that you love, and I have some loved ones that passed, and they could come to you in your dreams, and you could ask them to come back onto earth. What will each one of those individuals say? No way. Are you crazy? I would never go back. Why? Because they saw mentioned that they were not in control. You know that person that I was counseling outside the state, you know what he told me? He says, I was taking care of my wife. I gave her everything. And she did that to me. I said, it wasn't you that took care of your wife. It just wasn't. What do you mean? I took care of her. I provided her. Gave her so much money. If she wanted a brand new car, I would have her turn in the lease early, pay the fine, and get her a new car that was twice the value. I did that. But you didn't. Who did that? Allah. What's our problem? We really think when we help somebody or do something that it's us. It's not you. It's Allah through you. You are nothing when it relates to Allah. So how do you recognize that? One of the ways is to remember death. Guess what? What's one thing I could promise everybody here? That we're all going to what? Die. Since we know we're going to die, shouldn't we plan for it often? Some of you are planning to go to college or to get married or have children. These things you don't know for sure that they're going to happen. Somebody, a brother came to me, says, I understand my parents want to change. I'm 18. I might change when I'm 28 because that's when my dad told me he changed. So what's the rebuttal to that? How do you know that you're going to live those next 10 years, let alone the 10 days? Can anybody here for certain tell me they're going to be alive for the next 10 minutes? No. So should we remember death often? Yes. We're going to try to change the framework to be in an exciting way, inshallah. Okay, how would our interactions with our loved ones change if we knew it was the last time we would see them? Would they be more, what's the one word everybody just said? More loving. Why does it have to have that mindset for you to be more loving? So how do you quickly get into that mindset to be more loving, irregardless if they did something bad to you? Irregardless. How do you get that mindset? How about every time you meet with them, you say, this might be the last time I meet with them? How much would that change? How about your prayers? How about if you did that with your prayers? What if this is the last time I pray? How would I pray? How about when you get dressed? What if this is the last time? You know what the Imam, the prophets told us? For the shame of when the angel of death comes and takes somebody from a place that they shouldn't be. What a shameful disgrace of a death. And how shameful it is when we sometimes see people pass away and Allah took them from a place that is not a place that they should be. It's a place of sin. What a shame. How do you avoid that? Think of death. Say, I'm going to have to answer to this. So, how would you hold on to the petty grudges and complaints, or would you embrace every moment with love, understanding, and appreciation? Would you hold on to petty grudges if you knew you had a week to live, a year to live? But since you don't know, then why are you holding on to petty grudges? Yes or no? Have that discussion next to you. I want you to try to give a reason. Why am I holding on to things? If I would not hold on to them if I was promised in a week I'm going to die. Since you don't know you're going to die in a week, why are you holding on things that hurt you? Have that discussion with the person next to you. Talk to them. Go ahead. Speak from your heart. Why are you holding on? Let it go. Okay. Does anybody have any rationale why they should hold on to it? Yeah, we're holding on because of the nafs, the ego. But why? But what would happen if you hold on to your ego? Let's say you were raped, molested, cheated on, hurt, robbed, and then somebody comes and tells you you have a week to live. What would happen to that rapist, the person who molested you, all those people? What would happen? No, you wouldn't even barely think of them. You would let it go. You'd actually even forgive them because you know that's how you become whole and free. So, do you realize how important it is to remember death often to free yourself from people who have hurt you? Why? Because you realize those people are going to die too. They're going to have to answer what they've done to you. So let Allah take care of it. How do you think holding on to resentment is going to take care of it for you? One of the prophets, Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, you could see the death angel. And the death angel was sitting looking at him in bewilderment, one of the individuals. And then he asked him, why are you in bewilderment? He said, because this person that's next to you, I'm supposed to take his soul on the other side of the country. I'm bewildered. How's he going to get there by tomorrow? So when the prophet told his companion, this is what happened, that his soul's going to be taken tomorrow. Before he could even finish the sentence, what did the companion do? He started to run. Can you outrun death? No. Salawat. What if we tried to live with this heightened sense of consciousness every day, treating death not as a morbid thought, but as the greatest teacher in life? How different would you behave? Imagine looking forward, people passed away in your life, and every day waking up and saying, I'm one day closer to seeing them. Could be my next breath. It's a much different approach and relationship than always grieving and feeling sad. Because when you have the 5 stages of grief, the 5th stage is the hardest stage. What's the 5th stage? Anybody know? Accepting. And it's not until you can accept things for what they are, not what you want, and put the framework of death that nothing is mine, everything is Allah. That's the only way you could be in a meditative state of gaining consciousness and awareness and connection to Allah. There is no other way. You have to completely annihilate the soul and say, nothing is mine. So if Allah takes something, Allah gives me something, it's not mine. Allah gave me my parents. Allah's going to take them. They're not mine. What are you holding on to? And when you can accept that at that reality, now you're becoming a true Muslim. How do you do that? The names of Allah. Focus on one. Okay. What would change if you knew you would die in a week? That's won't go to work. But would you? You have 2 kids. You wouldn't, I don't think you would do that, Said. But you wouldn't spend all your money because you would leave some for your loved ones. What would you do if you had a week to live? You would forgive people. What else? You would pray, do more good actions, spend time with your family, ask for forgiveness, go places that you wanted to go, right? But do you notice we think we would go and do experiences? I need to go experience something if I'm about to die. Do you know that's the biggest lie you could tell yourself? Because those experiences won't fulfill you. Do you know what's the greatest satisfaction when you're about to die? Is not when you go and experience something, is what? It's the greatest satisfaction. Well, it's accepting. People who have this satisfaction are accepting. But what's the second thing compared to that? You're at peace, but what's an experience that you want when you're about to die? Surrender. What else? Think about it. You're about to die. You know, we're going to do our meditation tonight and envision you being in the grave and see how that goes. Getting ready, embracing. Okay, come on. Anybody could think you're about to die. You're in that scene. You're on the hospital bed or at home. You have a week to live. What's one thing? Ah, I just want to be with my. That's it. You know, that's all you're going to care about. So, question, you guys just answered all those things. You would forgive, do that. Why do we have to be told we're going to die in a week in order to change? Why are we waiting? You notice how shaitan and our nafs have got us? So, if you learn to remember death often in an exciting way, when Imam Ali alayhi salam would go to the Prophet, when do I get to leave this world to meet my Lord? The Prophet says, when this makes this red, he would grab his beard. Because when he got hit, that drenched it with blood, he says, that's when that day will come. And he told him. But Imam Ali alayhi salam, you know what was really interesting about the Imams and the prophets of God? When they died, guess what? There was no surprise to them. They already knew what was to come. They were just excited to go. See, right now, you'd be very excited to go on a vacation. And if I tell you you're going to plan a cruise, all exclusive cruise that we're going to go, you wake up, how will you wake up if you know that cruise is 30 days from now, or that Florida trip, or that Cancun trip? How would you wake up for the next 30 days? Excited, because I'm going somewhere exciting. So instead of doing it on a trip that's 30 days, why don't we do it with the next world and have the same framework? Why don't we ever, one, I don't see many speeches on this topic. Two, why don't we behave this way? This is the way the prophets and the imams told us. I need to be excited about leaving this world. Well, to be excited, what do you have to be? You have to be good. Isn't that more exciting, better to put your emotions there than anything else? Because that's infinite. Everything else is not yours. Nothing you get to take with you. So why are you putting more interest in vacations or relationships or money or your children more than that? Those things may burden you where they end up taking you to hell. Maybe you get married to somebody that causes you to sin, you end up in hell. But yet you put so much attention to that. You compromise your akhirah. There was one person who came to me and said, my father wants to make an abortion because I had this baby, and he says he'll take me back in if I'm allowed an abortion. I said, Islamically, you can't get an abortion. You know, your baby's too old. No, can't have an abortion. So I called the father and told the father, why are you doing this? And he gave me the reasons. It was all about a racist reason. I just asked him one question, but I said, why are you compromising your akhirah for this? Does anybody guess what his answer was? His community. What would the community think? I said, but the community doesn't care. Do you know the mom will be next to the son? You see the child that you would give your life to? They're next to you on a day of judgment. Do you think you're going to care about them? What does the Quran say? You won't even, Quran says you won't even look at them. So why are we willing to sacrifice anything for our akhirah? Think about your friends. How many of your friends take you away from the akhirah? Take you away from that destiny? Question that and say, wait, what am I doing? It's better for you to be alone. If it even causes you depression and anxiety, it's still better. Because then you can overcome that. by speaking to Allah. It's still better than compromising your akhirah. And I've realized something. People really don't think they're compromising their akhirah. They really think God is just going to be so forgiving to them. Sure. Or they don't really believe in it. But I promise you, brothers and sisters, it's going to happen. Do you know how all of you could, let's say we all end up in hell, which we won't. It's very hard to go to hell. But you saw me in hell. It's in the Quran. And you saw me in hell. Do you know what would happen? I would annoy you. You idiot! You gave us the advice to avoid hell. You said that this is all going to matter. You were right. Why don't you take your own advice? I'm speaking because I'm taking the biggest risk speaking about because now I'm really compromising my akhirah if I don't practice it. I decided to go get knowledge about Islam. I decided to go and learn the truth. So Allah says, you learned it. Now what are you going to do with it? Are you going to practice it? Or are you just like a donkey that's got books on it? Which one are you? And every day I wake up and I say, okay, I need to make sure I'm Muslim. What will you tell the angel of death if it comes to you? The angel of death is right in front of you. What would you tell it? It hasn't taken your life yet. Assalamu alaikum. By the way, we're all gonna. By the way, do you know what's really cool about this lecture? When the angel of death comes to you, you're gonna remember this moment. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's what you would say. What would almost all of us say? Give me a week. 1 week, right? Give me an hour. I betrayed this person. Let me give them their money back, right? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. We would change drastically. So now listen to this. What if the angel of death confronted us and questioned how we spent our time, challenging our request for more time, for 1 more week, to what truly matters? So the angel will ask you a question. Since you're asking for 1 more week, what did you do with the 20 years that Allah did give you? What did you do with the 30 years that Allah? What do you mean 1 more week? You've been given so much time. That's the only thing that's important. Yes. So there's two types of deaths. If you are a mu'min, the soul it's gentle. Even to the point where, let's say if you did a kidney transplant, some people who die who give their kidneys, they don't feel any pain because they're not attached to the body. But let's say you're a really bad person. That's a violent death. It's going to be very painful. So let's say if you have cancer or you have chronic illness, right? Feel that pain. But right when the angel of death takes you, what happens to that pain? It's gone, right? Do you know what's 20 times greater? Is the pain of the soul if you're not Salawat. I was gonna share a thought, it just slipped. Okay, maybe Shaitan doesn't want me, or maybe Allah doesn't want me to share it. Okay. How would you respond realizing that you've been given countless weeks throughout our life, yet not paid attention and acknowledged their significance? How much of our time have we wasted? In my own life, I've wasted so much time doing mundane things. And then the angels, you know what's really horrible? Is the angels will say, even if we end up in heaven, it's called the day of regret for this reason. The angels said, you know, if you just would have spent 2 more hours a week in the Quran, or 2 more hours a week or a month doing this is where your reality would have went to. But you decided to say the same person because somebody hurt you. You chose to be a victim. But this is where your reality would have been. Because your realities, we just did Laylatul Qadr, right? That's when all your realities come into existence for the year. So there's infinite amount of realities. And you want to give your attention towards the best for it to come down from the field and manifest itself. They're already there. You don't create from nothing. So that's why having that mental rehearsal, but then you have to ask the question, what are things that I have to do differently about my life to get there? And what's the fastest way to do it? Remember death. That person that hurt me, the person that I'm trying to hurt, remember death. You know who are the people that I trust? I don't think because they're going to think twice before betraying you and hurting. That's why the Imam says, I rather have a wise enemy than a foolish friend. Because one of your foolish friends could get close to you and end up taking you to hell because he loves you or she loves you. An enemy that's wise will think twice before striking. Salawat. What would happen? What if we started living with the intention of gratitude for the time we have instead of waiting for the warning that may never come? Why not just be in the gratitude that you're here sitting? Would you ever wanna be in a rush to go somewhere? If you remember death often, knowing that your next moment isn't promised, why don't you appreciate the moments that you have now? You'll never, ever be in a rush to go somewhere. You'll always appreciate the present moment and having that state of gratitude. Thank you, Allah, for giving me another day. How did the prophets wake up? They'd wake up, "Thank you, Allah, for allowing me to wake up, to give me another day to get closer to you." How do we wake up? "Ah, my kids, my ex, my job, my bosses." Now, if you wake up in that state, are you gonna expect anything good happen to you in your life? No, and then you're gonna complain why God isn't helping you. That says you haven't helped yourself. You haven't been grateful for the things that you have. How do you expect me to give you more? Just be grateful for your next breath. We're all gonna die the same way. How? A breath. We're all gonna be what's it called? Asphyxiation. We're all gonna die the same way. What matters? Consider the inevitability of death. Ask yourself, why aren't you living in alignment with what truly matters? Recognize that material possessions and roles are temporary and discover your true self. Since you know you're gonna die, what is it that you're chasing for? And are you making sure that you chase something to discover who you really are? Or are you getting arguments and pettiness of controlling something that's not even yours? Is your neighbor making you angry? And every day you talk back about the anger because he did something, or an ex or a family member. Why? How does this support your akhirah? So that's why you should remember death often and say, why am I going into this space? Why am I even taking myself there? Let it go. It's not gonna matter. There's a brother who got killed playing basketball. And every time I go to the cemetery, I always see his mom at the graveyard. Why did these guys get into a fight? Because one elbowed the other one smacked the other, and they felt embarrassed. So the one guy felt embarrassed, decided to go grab a gun, shoot. What's one thing that probably never crossed his mind when he went to go do that? Death, his own death. Probably never crossed his mind. Because what would have happened? Because now we're talking about it. But if he would have just remembered death and let it go and felt embarrassed that he got slapped and just felt embarrassed, what would have happened after 2 months to that embarrassing feeling? Gone away. Do you notice we get shaitan catches us in the moment, you get so angry in a week. It's like when you play video games, kids that play video games, they get so mad. Then you ask them 2 weeks later, "Who won in Call of Duty or Madden that you threw your $50 controller?" "'Cause I have no idea." I said, "At the moment, you thought it was so important, but you threw it down your controller, you got so angry." So notice it's all passing clouds. So why are we destroying our akhirah and compromising it? So how do you make sure you don't get in this reality? You have to remember death often. So I wanna go into the inner dimension of the Holy Quran quickly, and then there's one more slide after that. Yes. So family members that are constantly living in the past, all you do is you feel compassion for them and accept them for who they are and realize that's who they are. I want to pray for them, inshallah they change, but I'm not going to be like that. How do you end up becoming like them? You try to change them. Or you feel angry at them because they're not who. How do you know when they die, they're not going to go in a higher place in heaven than you are? And how do you know if you were in the same shoes as they were, you'd be any different? I deal with prostitutes in the community, and I sit with them, and I'm very honest. I said, if I was a woman and I was in the situation you're in, I have no idea if I would have made the same decision as you. I may have done worse. So I'm never allowed to judge. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, when people would do the worst things to them, he'd go pray for them because he would see their akhirah, he would see their soul. He feels so much compassion for them. You want to change people? Pray for them because Allah will change them. What if we live like this as a community? How much different? That's what I'm worried. I'm everybody, can I be honest? I feel like everybody is suffering from something. Why? Where did we go wrong as an ummah, as a human race? Where everybody is suffering from something. The numbers of the US in terms of even suicide rates, it's not the poor people or the people from the third world country who are committing suicide. Who is it? It's the wealthy. Why? Why can't we no longer live with ourselves? Why are we seeing such high levels of ADD, depression, anxiety, suicide? If you're not suffering, you have a best friend who is, and you have to hear it every day. Why? I want to change this. This is how. You have to change it through the traditions and the Quran. Sometimes I feel like I get so discouraged because you meet people and the stories and how they've been betrayed. You're thinking, these are not human beings, they're animals. How do you do this to somebody? So the only way is to elevate yourself. That's it. Say, how can I be a change? Maybe that will change the community. Because the only other way that's going to happen is when the Imam returns. There's no other way at a mass way. Things have gotten so bad. The people in power within this country and other countries, they have no problem killing millions of people in order to become wealthy. The British killed 11 million Iranians in World War One. You don't hear about it. They starved them to death. And if they could do it again, if they were compromised or somebody put them in a position where their interests were conflicted, they would do it again. I'm worried. What do? We have to control ourselves. How do we stop suffering? Just remember death. Remember, you're going to have to answer everything. But remember, this is all temporary. I have a question. If somebody came to you and said, here's this pill, you could live on earth forever, and you could be the best version of yourself forever, would you take it? What's the one problem with that argument if you knew you could live forever on earth? Where your loved ones all die, but then you create new loved ones. It's a good point, but it's a greater. You're gonna be alone, but right. But what's a bigger problem? Close. Ah. Why would you wake up and do everything if you know you have an infinite amount of days? Like why go to work? Why do anything? You talk about having the ultimate time of procrastination. Let somebody give you a pill to live on this earth forever. Why would you be motivated to do anything? Do you know what motivates you? That this time is limited. That should motivate. You know what's interesting? When I deal with people who are very overweight, and I say, if I gave you $5 million, can you lose 30 pounds in a year? How about 10 million, 20 million? Would you? What would they all say? Yes. They wouldn't eat. Not only would they lose 30, they would lose 100 just in case. So do you know somebody for 30 years who's been overeating, bad diet, living a lifestyle? Somebody offers them $10 million, how fast do they change? Instantly. Yes or no? So notice Allah is telling us, forget the 10 million. You have this akhirah where anything that you think of a $10 million palace, there it is. That's my problem. Why? What are our scholars saying, our top scholars? Stop speaking less about history, speak about death, Quran, and um, the Quran and Tawheed, the oneness of God. Focus on that. Somebody gave you $10 million, you would behave differently. Allah is giving you the universe within you that you can manifest anything you want in the next life, even be able to do it in this life. And then we have stories of that in the Quran. Why don't we do that? Shaitan has got us. He's definitely got me. We don't live like we're thinking when I something happens, when I get my job, when my kids reconcile, when this person comes back in my life, I feel so much joy. It's all a lie. The only way you're gonna feel joy is irrespective of what's happening outside of you, it's insignificant. It doesn't matter. Let's say you're going through heartbreak, something really bad, and somebody handed you $20 million. What would happen to that heartbreak? Feel a little bit better. You would upgrade real quick. Yes or no? So you notice Allah's given it to us already. It's already in your bank. There, it exists. What's our problem? We don't believe in it. I'm gonna quickly, what time is it? Okay, I'm gonna be quick. And I'll go deeper into the meetings next week. So when she heard about their gossip, who was gossiping? So Leha fell towards a slave. Who was the slave? Prophet Yusuf. They started gossiping. They started saying she invited them to set a banquet because they were saying, "How does a princess go towards a slave? What's wrong with her?" So what did she do? She invited them to sit at a banquet. She gave each one a knife. Why did she do this? Because she wanted to expose. She didn't say what she did was wrong. All that she exposed in this ayah is that you would do the same thing. You notice it's easy to judge somebody when they hurt somebody or stole or robbed. But how do you know if you were in that same position, you would do anything different? So should you be careful of judging people? Absolutely. Because Allah says that's your karma. And why do you have that karma in your life? Remember that person that you were backbiting? Remember that pharmacist that you made fun of because he lost his pharmacy and you told 20 people about his story? Now Allah put you in the same position to take money that wasn't yours. How did you do? That's where karma is in Islam. But what is karma for? To teach you a lesson, to get closer to Allah. So look at this karma. So they each one gave a knife, come out before them. When they saw him, they were stunned by his beauty, and they cut their hands and exclaimed, "Good God! Hallelujah! Subhanallah! This cannot be a human, it must be an angel." So, and then before that, some woman gossiped, the chief's wife is trying to seduce her slave boy. Love for him plagued her heart. Indeed, we see that she's clearly mistaken. Well, actually, the esoteric, the outer meanings of this verse are exactly what you see, but there are inner meanings. I just want to go through one and then we'll continue it next week. The one example that I want to give is the knife. So when they had the knife in their hand, what happened when they saw him? They started cutting. So what did that mean? If they started cutting themselves when they saw something, what did that mean to themselves? Like if you're cutting yourself when you see something, what does that mean? You're no longer attached to what? This world. So when they saw the magnificence of Allah, what happened to this world to them? It went away. And and I was going to go through the deep meanings. We'll save for that for next week. But there's one thing I want to give you. It says, imagine two 20-year-olds seeing the moon, one for the first time versus the other who is acquainted with the moon since childhood. Reactions will be different. A technique used in spiritual wayfaring of getting closer to Allah is that imagining that surrounding you has been created instantaneously minus the ac- acquirement and factor. What does that mean? It means imagine you never saw snow, right? And then you moved to Michigan and you got to play in snow. How would that feel? Feel different. Imagine you never saw the moon and then somebody showed you the moon. How would that feel? Imagine you never saw a dog, an animal, a cat. How did it feel when you first fell in love with your husband? Say, wow, he took care of me. He didn't hurt my vulnerabilities. How did that feel? How did it feel when you first experienced something? Do you notice now, what do we take for granted? Everything. You have walked outside thousands of times, but how many times have you appreciated it? I get to go outside and look the magnificence of the moon. There's two types of people. People who get used to it. See, Zuleika got used to Yusuf. She knew when she brought these women, they saw him for the first time, they were gonna be blown away. How should we be? We should be blown away by this universe and this is existence. Every day, you're able to smile. When you wanna show somebody that you're happy, you get to smile. Why not appreciate that? When your husband makes you sad, what do you get to do? Without saying anything, frown. What a beautiful system. Do you appreciate the last time you were able to frown or smile? How about when you put your hand here or your hand here? You're able to put that hat on your head. Do you want everybody's looking to get millions of dollars relationships. What's the solution? Let's appreciate what you have. That's it. And then when you compound that with remembering death, now you're living as a believer. You're chewing gum. Think about it. You don't even have to think about it, and you're chewing gum. How? You have teeth. You have this hole in your head. You get to put food in, and it digests food for you without you even thinking about it. And then when you need to use the restroom, it reminds you. So shouldn't we look at Allah's system like somebody who looks at snow for the first time every day? Why don't we? You know why? Because we're suffering with something that's taking us away from this reality. You get to use a phone. You get to speak to somebody on the other side of the world instantly on FaceTime. The last time you picked up the phone, do you even know how it works? Like you can pick up the phone and talk to somebody that's 20 miles away? Do you have any idea how that even works? How about the fact that you're on a rock that's floating in an infinite amount of nothingness? Do you ever appreciate that? And Allah says, we protected this rock, so when things come towards the earth, the atmosphere protects you. Did you ever appreciate that? You know what Allah says? Allah says, take all the water from the ocean, turn it into ink. You still won't have enough ink to talk about all the things to be grateful for. So compound the things that you're suffering compared to the things to be grateful for. When you're suffering, this seems to outweigh this. But people who remember death often say, "Yeah, that person betrayed you. Too bad. Guy's going to have a problem. I hope I forgive him. I hope his death isn't too hard." 'Cause that's a problem. What's our problem? Why do we as Muslims, this is one of the pivotal pillars of our faith. Why don't we live this way? Why? Why within our community there's so much resentment? How many people in your life who genuinely, when something good happens to you, they were so happy as if it happened for themselves? How many people you have in your life? You know what made me sad? Brother called me today. You know what hurt me the most? This is what hurt me the most. Wasn't my wife leaving me or me leaving my wife because she was bad. I'm about to cry again. Says, you know what hurt me the most? Says my cousins and uncles who wouldn't speak to me for years pick up the phone and ask me what, and then the undertone of it was, here's a rich person, good looking. Look, he doesn't have it all together, as if they were happy. How do you live like that? Don't be grateful for what Allah has given you, then you will never be happy for other people. I'm worried, brothers and sisters. Our community is so consumed by consumerism. It's all about what we have, what our kids have. We're so worried. That's our labels, that's our identity. We need to break this habit. Stop caring. The only thing you should worry about is yourself. How's my relationship with Allah? Allah is the one that takes care of everything else. How can we rekindle an appreciation for the mundane aspects that we have grown accustomed to? Quickly, talk about 2, 3 things that you can start appreciating that have been mundane in your life. Brushing your teeth, hugging your kids. What is something that's mundane, you think? Looking at the sun, looking at the moon, breathing, seeing things grow. That you want to say, when these 3 things happen in my life, I'm going to change it from the mundane and start appreciating it. That will naturally upregulate my genes, my cells, make my heart more coherent, make me closer to Allah. Take the things that are already happening to you and say, how can I appreciate them a little bit more? How about doing your hair? And appreciating that Allah's given you the ability just to comb your hair. And every time you comb it, you thank Allah. Talk to the person next to you. What are 3 things that you're going to start practicing an attitude of gratitude when I do this mundane task? I'm going to appreciate Allah. There's du'as of entering the bathroom, of brushing your teeth, of drinking water. Why do you think you're supposed to say Bismillah before you do any task? You're about to sit, Bismillah. You're about to drive a car, Bismillah. Why? Not only for protection, it's to recognize Allah, appreciate Him. People are saying, why am my life this way? Why am I suffering? This is the reason. Show appreciation for what you have. So talk to the person next to you. What are 3 mundane tasks you're going to start recognizing Allah when you do them? Go. Then we'll end soon. We'll be done in 2 minutes. So how was it when you were a child and that excitement of playing with snow for the first time? The excitement of going down the roller coaster the first time. Do you remember those times? Do you know you can have that moment every day just by being excited to exist and appreciate what Allah has given you? That's the emotional state you want to get to. Why aren't you that way? Because you allowed something from your past to victimize you and taking away that childlike emotion that's within you. You're not a victim. So, in, if given the opportunity to live on earth eternally, okay, we skip this. We're going to go back. My God, I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose my children. This could be the last time I'll see them. From now on, I'm going to pay more attention to them and to my spouse and to all my friends and loved ones. I want to get to see much more of life. You no longer need to experience something if you only have a week to live. You appreciate what they have and you look at them. You know, if your mom passed away tomorrow and you had just a piece of her hair, you would cherish it. Yes or no? Just a piece. If her glasses, you would cherish them. You wouldn't give them away for $1,000,000. Why does it take that to cherish them? Why don't we cherish them when they're alive? You know why? Because we're playing the infinite game on earth thinking it's going to be forever. The worst thing is when you have opportunities to be with somebody in a good way and you don't take advantage. You want to really mess up your akhirah? Do that. He who created death and life to test you of which is best indeed, and he's exalted. We're gonna skip. One last thing I want to go into. Okay. Let it encourage you to experience life fully. But remember, it's not your life. You should be experiencing the life that is happening to you, not the one that you wish that was happening. Stop saying, "Oh, I wish this would happen. I wish my daughter would do this, or my son, or my job." Don't live that way. Don't be in a state of want. Allah has put you exactly where you need to be to find Him. Don't say when this happens. Don't be in a state of lack. Why? Because you can't say when this happens, because tomorrow God may take you and those things might not have happened. That's why you're supposed to do emotional rehearsal and live as if those things that you want are already there and you thank Allah for them. That's the way to live. How do you do that? You remember death often. So don't waste a moment of life trying to make other things happen. Appreciate the moments you are given. Don't you understand that every minute you're a step closer to death, this is how to live your life. Every minute you're getting closer. Appreciate that. Who are the only people who should be scared of death? People who hurt people, right? That's it. Everybody else can end up in a good place. Majority of humans. It's very hard to go to hell. Let's appreciate, instead of saying I'm going to go to heaven, how about we live a life where we say we're going to reach high levels of heaven? What would it take to be next to the prophet? It's much different than saying I want to avoid hell. The likelihood of us ending up in hell is very low, very low. But then the option is, what level of heaven do we want to reach? There's many levels. So why should you live it as though you were on the verge of death? Why should you live your life? And I'm ending with this, that you're on the verge of death. Yes. Keeps you from sinning because you're living your best life. Why should you live your life as if you're on the verge of death? Yeah. Like, okay, imagine you had two friends. One friend doesn't think about death. The other friend says, "Oh, that I'm worried about my death, so I want to be careful on how I behave." Which friend would you trust more? Right? The one who recognizes death, who remembers death. You would trust them more because they're thinking about the akhirah before they think about anybody else hurting somebody. But why should we think about as if we're always on the verge of death? Just try. Be devil's advocate. Why? But why is it when you plan for a Cancun trip, somebody says that's so toxic that you think of your Cancun trip every day? Yeah. So why not live in abundance when you think about your akhirah? Because your akhirah is coming. Why should you live on the verge of death? You want to know why? Because you are. You don't know if tomorrow is promised to you. So you wake up saying, wow, when I meet with my mom, in case this might be the last time, this is the way I'm going to treat her. Now, every time you have that transaction, imagine now how you go into work. This is might be my last opportunity to do Allah's work. I'm going to behave a little bit differently. That's the way to live. You should live on the verge of death. Why? Because you are. One of us in this room might die within the next year. No, because you're going to die. And since you don't know when you're going to die, you plan for it. Yes. No, but that's because you keep listening to the West of how the West defines death. That's a morbid way. Death is the way you want to experience death is you appreciate the moment right now. You don't need to experience something outside of you to appreciate this moment that you have right now. Because tomorrow's not promised, you live now and appreciate the people that are in your life. Right. My advice to them is do that, because that's the only thing they're going to care about when they die. Right. So how do you get to that state where you say, wow, I'm really excited to go meet my loved one? Because imagine you get married, you find somebody that loves you, and then he's living in Vietnam, and he calls you and said, "Oh, you're coming to visit me? Are you excited?" And you tell him no. All death is for you to go and meet your Lord. Be really excited about that. You will transact much differently. It's the most inevitable thing that's going to happen. Tomorrow, you might lose your business. Tomorrow, your kids might something might happen. What's the only thing that's constant is your relationship with Allah. That's the only thing you can control. And that's why Allah says when you remember death, you're actually remembering that you're coming back to me, who loves you, who created you. All these things that you're attached for, the reason why you're attached is because I gave them. Since you love your kids, Allah gave your kids. So shouldn't you love Allah even more? You love your mom? You say, yes. Well, put the love there. Who created love? Because of our morbid way of looking at it. Yes. Yes. So let's leave funerals. Let's just go into prayer. Knowing that death is inevitable, and you remember now, how will you pray a little bit different? See, when you pray, knowing that this might be your last time of prayer, as soon as your mind wanders to something else, how would you pray a little bit differently? That's all I'm asking you to do. What will happen is you'll appreciate things, and what will happen even more, there'll be less suffering. Why? Because you're not attached to things anymore, because you know this is all transient. Because one thing we can't argue is people are suffering over things that they're attached to. And this is one of the best ways to disattach. Okay, give me 3 points that you've shared today. Share them on here, share with the person next to you. What we're gonna do is after you do that, we'll go downstairs for those there's food, refreshments, prayer. We'll have Jama'ah prayer in the prayer hall. Um, and then we'll come back up here. We're gonna do a meditation on death. If you are scared of death, this is gonna be one of the ways to overcome it. It's an interesting meditation. Um, anybody have time? What time is it? 9:15? I only went 15 minutes over. I didn't do bad. Proud of myself. We'll be back in here at 9:50. So that gives you time to eat, pray, mingle, and come back up at 9:50. If you wanna join the book club group, please do. Oh, Haj, you want that's the WhatsApp group if you would like to join. Meditation at 9:50. What time is it? You wanna give a half hour? 9:45? Alright, we'll do 9:45.